Hey, Bertel here, and recently I've noticed a sort of trend. Whenever a new Siege season comes out, it seems that every content creator and every pro has something to say about how the game's gonna die this time. So I thought I'd come out as just a normal player and talk about my feelings on the game and where I think it's going. But to be fair, as a little disclaimer, I am just a casual player. I don't really care too much about metas or what balanced operators there are. I just play for fun, and so take everything I say with a grain of salt. One of the biggest problems I think Siege is facing at the moment is what I call Nerf culture. And it's this design philosophy at Ubisoft that if something is too powerful, it needs to be nerfed. In case you need any evidence, try checking the patch notes for any major or mid-season patch, and you'll see that at least one weapon usually receives a nerf. The problem with this is that, well, let's just be honest, there's always going to be something powerful in Siege. There's no way to avoid it. And so simply nerfing whatever is the most powerful at the moment inevitably just leads players to find the next most powerful weapon, and then the cycle continues in a vicious process, which just makes everybody unhappy because every gun eventually gets nerfed. In case you've ever wanted to predict which weapon will be the next to receive a nerf, try checking the latest designer's notes on the Siege blog and see which operator currently has the highest win or pick rate. Usually what you'll find is whichever weapon gets used most often is the most likely one to receive a nerf. This can also sometimes lead to weapon removals or replacing a good weapon with a not so good one. Is it a weapon you like that was just on a different operator who didn't see as much play? Too bad, not their problem. They're going to nerf anything they see that has a high pick rate into the ground, purely because they can't find a way to balance items or operators or weapons in a way which doesn't destroy them. The solution for this is somewhat more complicated, as it requires a complete rethinking of how balance is performed at Ubisoft. However, if they eventually find a good way to balance the game that doesn't involve nerfing anything good into the ground, this problem could actually very easily be resolved. Another problem which I see in Siege, which doesn't get discussed nearly enough, is the idea of map reworks. You see, Siege hasn't received a new map since Operation Burnt Horizon all the way back at Season 1 of 2019. That's forever ago, and we still haven't received a brand new map. Now, of course, I'm not counting the reworked ones, because those aren't brand new. It's just an old map made newer, I suppose. Though this doesn't really resolve the problem of a content drought, considering that it doesn't actually introduce any new concepts to the game. Another large criticism which I have of map reworks is it often makes them feel more competitive, which is good for the competitive side of the game, but it also feels a lot more samey. You have these maps with cool, unique, or fun gimmicks, which just get turned into this bland amalgam of modern and old Siege. I believe what Siege really needs right now is new maps, new characters, new concepts. As you can even see this philosophy in the seasonal events. We're starting to see a lot more recycled events. Doctor's Curse coming back for Halloween, Showdown comes back as a random event. There's a lot less new content in the game than there was near the beginning of the game. Now, this is somewhat inevitable as a game continues to develop, purely because that's how game development works. You get concepts you like and you stick with them. The problem is definitely more so this idea that nothing new has to be done to appease the fans, and this couldn't be further from the truth, which is why we continue to see Siege's player base decline. Now, the problem for this, once again, can be easily resolved with a simple new map, and that's not an event map, that's not a limited time map, an actual new map. And you could also go a complete different direction, maybe have casual have unreworked, gimmicky maps, while competitive sees new reworked maps very often. The Siege team has proved that they've been able to make multiple reworks in one season with the most recent reworks, 3 maps at once, and so why don't we just have light reworks like that to older maps? But once again, this isn't too major of an issue. To add on to the lack of content related to maps, there's also a lack of content related to operators, which is a huge problem considering that's what Siege is all about. Now, while Ubisoft continues to release a single operator every season, this is half as much as it was previously, though this is somewhat to be expected as the game continues to develop and uses up pre-development assets. For those of you outside the know, developing an operator usually takes more than a year if it's in line with other studios that follow the practice. For example, Respawn's Apex Legends has a very long development cycle for each of their characters, sometimes ranging up to 3 years. Now, the problem with the lack of operators isn't actually the lack of released operators, as I said previously, they're still producing 1 per season. It's that these operators don't see nearly as much play as older ones. The only relevant example I can think of a good new operator is Ace, and even then, he doesn't actually introduce anything new to the game. Now, while there's no such thing as unlimited new ideas, the problem with newer operators isn't just a lack of originality, it's also a lack of power. Operators like Flores don't see much play not because he's not unique, but because he's not as powerful as, say, Thatcher or Callie, while they also fulfill the same role. This problem, though, isn't easy to resolve and will take some time due to the long development cycles. However, it does look like they are getting better. It's still a problem for the time being. The final problem I'm going to cover in this video is actually the problem of Tryhard Culture. Now, this one might be controversial, this one might actually not have a solution, purely because it happens in any game that has a competitive setting. People will naturally begin to try harder in order to get higher ranks, and as such it can't purely easily be resolved. One of those natural side effects of this is that, as previously mentioned with the Nerf culture, there's always going to be something in power, and as such players will always feel pressured to play a certain character because it's meta, because they feel they have to, even if it's in casual. You can see this a lot with characters like Clash, one of the characters I really enjoy playing, even though she almost objectively sucks. Not really much can be done to help as a solution, but it is something which still irks me about the game, and I thought I'd like to get it off my chest. I'm actually going to close this video out on a positive note, and that's that the developers actually appear to be doing a good job understanding how the game is changing and how they have to adapt in order to fit these new needs. Some of the nerfs I don't really agree with, however, some of the stuff that's been tested actually looks really good. For example, the ability to use your drone after you died. One of the things which is annoying about the game, but is just naturally part of the genre, and as such not a complaint about Siege, is that once you die, there's not really as much you can do. And so giving players the ability to use their cameras or drones after death is actually really cool, and I hope to see a lot more like that from the Siege developers. And so there's actually a lot to look forward to in terms of Siege. And so I close this video out pessimistically optimistic. I really hope to see more from the developers, but they're very slow to act due to the fear of angering the competitive side of the game, which is a genuine thing they have to worry about. And so I really hope you enjoyed the video. Consider liking, subscribing if you do, boost the algorithm, even just saying it does. And have a great day.